Hi guys, so Donald Trump has imposed his tariffs. Now in some ways it's not as bad as some had envisioned. However, it will create a great deal of headache for countries exporting to the US. One of the takeaways from this was how the EU will have a 20% tariff imposed on it, while the UK got away with just, if we can say just, 10%. Of course, Brexiteers online have been doing something of a victory lap, but this is like losing your home and then finding a fiver under the sofa that you're sleeping on. On the issue of Brexit, it looks like the US has in a way copied that madness, as Chris Southworth of the International Chamber of Commerce points out here.
Chris Southworth is Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce UK, and earlier I asked him about the potential impact of a blanket 20% tariff on exports to the US.
Well, I think the first point to make around all of this is that the Trump administration is creating enormous market uncertainty. We just don't know. And the policy is changing day by day. The impact of that means that boards and companies will be pausing investment. They'll be hesitating around the US. And the same for governments too. They'll be looking elsewhere, like companies will, to say that looking at the US and saying this is actually an unreliable, volatile market. Let's go somewhere else or look to somewhere else to reroute trade. It's quite interesting from a UK perspective because we saw this when the UK left Europe. The original route for Irish trade was over England through what used to be called the land bridge. That was rerouted literally within a week to avoid the UK mainland. And that's a great example of just how quickly businesses adapt to the situation. And that's not good news for the US economy.
Well, I mean, who do you think, which side do you think is going to come out the greater loser? Donald Trump has acknowledged that there will be some pain to the US economy, but many outsiders say that they will feel the pain the most.
Well, everybody's going to feel some pain here, but let's put things in context. The US economy is no longer the market economy in trade. It's 13% of global trade. So 87% of global trade actually doesn't rely on the US. But tariffs have the potential to impact 1.7 trillion of global trade. That's 5%. So that should sort of put things in a little bit of wider context that, yes, it will be disruptive, but I think what we'll see is companies starting to look elsewhere, governments doing the same. We're already starting to see new alliances and dialogues going on, whether it's Japan and China or whether it's the emerging markets. Because they're responding to de-risk their national economies, just like companies are de-risking their supply chains. And none of that's good news for the US. So the big loser, I think, in the short, medium, long term will be the US economy.
Did Donald Trump ask Nigel Farage, was Brexit a success? Was it a good idea to impose economic sanctions upon yourself? How did that work out? Maybe he did ask Nigel Farage, and Farage's response was, yeah, it's a great idea to impose economic sanctions upon yourself. As this guy here, as this expert pointed out, what will happen is businesses will not invest in the US. And it's not just about how disruptive Donald Trump is. He's also creating a very toxic environment for businesses to invest in the US. He's talking about deregulating. Many companies want regulations because they need them in order to operate. They want to be protected from other industries. They want to be protected in many other ways. So they need regulations. Many businesses are against regulations, but they understand that they're necessary. Now, if you're talking about ripping up the rule books, that's going to create uncertainty. If Donald Trump is talking about reducing immigration, kicking people out, that's going to create uncertainty. Businesses rely on foreign workers. So if you're creating a toxic environment and you're talking about, well, we're going to impose tariffs this day and we're going to change them the following day, this is going to put people off from investing in the United States. And as was pointed out as well, you're going to see businesses going to places where it's more safe, where it's more stable. Donald Trump represents instability. So why would anyone invest there? Now, I'm not saying there won't be any investment. I'm not saying that there won't be any returning companies. Yes, that's going to happen. But it's going to create a situation where it's difficult to invest, where people are going to, in some cases, hold off their investment until they see stability. But remember, Donald Trump does not represent stability. He represents the opposite of that. It's about creating instability. Like, I honestly believe that Trump's goal is to destroy the US economy in order to allow disaster capitalists, or these billionaires, just to buy up everything so cheaply, so that when the economy does recover, they're better off. They're richer. This is his goal. This is what I believe is the objective of him and the people around him. So something like a Brexit in the US would actually help those people, but it will not help the average American. They're going to see their prices rise, and they're not going to see a huge increase in jobs for ordinary people.